Here we go. Season 5. Woo. I feel like I start the seasons really weirdly whenever I do that, but welcome, guys. John, how's it going?
I'm doing well. How about you, Steph?
I'm good. I just got off a train from Paris this morning. I was off there doing an offsite with some of the people from the Cloud Intelligence Dashboard crew. So it was a bunch of us all over meeting in person, which was very nice to see people in 3D, which is still like a novelty sometimes. So that was really good fun. But yeah, a little tired, a little bit too much cheese and wine. Thanks to the host over there. But yeah, doing good. Carlos, how you doing?
Very, very good as well. I think there is something very similar to you. Just had an offsite for 2 days with all our EMEA
Oh,
team in London. So that was a very nice catch up for the last 2.5 days. Yeah.
nice, nice. Yeah, for everyone who's kind of maybe not an Amazonian, we've been meeting more and more in person, which is, I mean, and I'm sure other companies are doing this. We're meeting more in person, which is amazing. So, I mean, me and John went to a FinHack the other day together, which was super fun. Like go to Dublin. So, yeah, we've been busy.
I was going to say, Steph, yeah, you've been making your way all through Europe over the past
Don't.
month or two, right?
Yep, and all over, and still got more to go. Still got Spain and Sweden coming up before we go back to America. So busy all over, but we will be bringing you the show, even if I'm not here. John is my kind of new official other co-host, as well as Savannah and Alex that we've got. So if I'm not here, you're in good hands for other episodes. But on that note, let's get into today's. So welcome everyone to the Keys to AWS Optimization, the show where we share stories, concepts, and solutions to help you unlock your spend at AWS. My name is Stephanie Gooch, and I am a commercial architect at AWS working in the optics team. John?
Yeah, and I'm John Massey, work alongside Steph on the optics team. Been here for about 2 years now, working with our strategic account customers.
And killing it. John is one of the best. Today we have Carlos. Carlos, do you want to introduce yourself and your team?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Carlos Galan, and I'm part of the Cloud Financial Management team in EMEA.
Nice. And Carlos, you've seen him before. He's been on the show a couple of times. And today we're going to be talking about taking advantage of the free tier. So we're going to go all into that. But first of all, a couple of programming announcements. If you haven't seen us before, we are a weekly show. We share all about cost optimization and ways that you can optimize your accounts and different levers you can pull, but also kind of operational elements. And we've got loads of good content coming to you for the rest of the season, a lot of reInvent stuff coming up later on in the year. And on reInvent note, I wanted to flag the reInvent sessions that we have from the Cloud Financial Management Department at Amazon. So these are all the really good sessions. The others, the first one in green is my one, so please come say hi to that one. But we've got loads of really good talks coming up for that. And I also wanted to flag next Thursday after Twitch, I will be doing an event with Jeff Barr, who's been on the show as well, where I'm going to be talking about optimizing, creating a data lake for optimization. So come join on AWS Fest. I'll pop the link in the chat, but just wanted to shout out some of those things. But yeah, so let's get into it. So there we go, popping our link in the chat. So if you want to sign up to Fest.
And Steph, is that Fest? Is that virtual and open to everyone?
Yeah, so it's a really cool event. There's me, there's John. It's hosted by John Meyer, whose podcast I was on recently. Check that out. Alex was on it as well. I'm going to throw that link in the chat. And all these will be in the show notes. So if you watch us on YouTube, you'll be able to see these. But yeah, John's doing it. Really cool podcast. You can check out the link there, the John Meyer podcast. Alex did it, I did it. And the event is going to be really fun. So it's hosted by him, and it's lots of different experts talking about optimizing in general on cloud. And yeah, Jeff's going to be a co-host with him. And they've also got a mentalist. So someone who's there to like the TV show, but not like the TV show, I'm hoping. So like no murders, but the idea that like a comic, I think. Anyway, I'm going off track. But yeah, so sign up. Should be a fun event. Okay, let's get into it. So the free tier. So Carlos, do you want to set the scene for us a little bit about the Amazon free tier?
Yeah, sure. I think it's just to clarify a little bit about, when it comes to cloud, we all know the main value proposition, right? So the users are able not to replace these heavy cyclical investments for in exchange of a specialized, service provider with a variable spend model, and it's very simple. It's pay as you go. We all know that, and we see very similar analogies in other industries. Just like, for example, owning a flat versus staying at a hotel, right? Very similar. Or if you want to say cooking at home versus going to a restaurant, right? It's pretty much that sort of concept. So we know at least that these models provide the flexibility, and the more we use, the more we pay. Very simple. So I stay for 3 nights, I pay for 3 nights. So I order 2 pizzas, I pay for the 2 pizzas. At least we can control the outcome, right? And that's the main thing. However, with the cloud, even though you have that similarities, the usage sort of depends on the behavior of your workloads, which in turn depends on the demand from your customers, right? So this variable spend model may feel a little bit different and maybe somehow outside of control. And obviously, that's why we have cloud financial management and FinOps, and we can help customers to tackle these things. But I guess today we wanted to discuss one of those tools that is a little bit underestimated sometimes, but it can really help massively.
Right. Yeah. The free, I mean, anyone who's listening to the show is going to be excited by the word free, I'm assuming. For sure. So do you want to explain kind of what the free tier is?
Yes. So free tier, I mean, the name is very sells by itself. But to be very clear, I think it's also the point of today is the AWS Free Tier is a form of allowance, right, that is given for free to customers, which permits them to explore, I would say, more than 100 services and start building on AWS today. Very simple.
Wow. 100. That's, I don't think I even knew that it was 100 free services that you could take advantage of. I don't know about you, John.
I mean, I think it's one of those ones where you forget as those services kind of grow, like, that there's new ways to consume those and new options with the free tier. I was thinking about that analogy of the restaurant and, cooking at home or going out. And I'm sure this is a very cheesy way to think about it, but, I kind of think about the free tier as being, hey, there's some pieces that are just like a sample where you get a couple months trial. Then there's some that are always free, like the basket of chips or the basket of bread you get, at the restaurant every single time. And, there's some of those features where folks can continue to use those things for free every time they use AWS going forward, just that little slice that they're going to always get for services like Lambda or some of the other ones out there.
That's a great, you've really gone deep into analogy. I've definitely been to restaurants before where they've given me something because I've never been there before. It was like a special one and they wanted you to come back and they wanted you to try it to see if you'd like it. So that's definitely the kind of thing with Amazon. I feel like going to restaurants now, and I won't talk about my food in Paris. We were talking about, so I spun the link up there, which I would recommend checking out because that's the link of all the services, right?
Yes. Should you be on screen, maybe?
Oh yeah, I can jump on that. Let me do that now. Where's it gone? Trying to. There we go. So free tier.
There you go. So you can see that the free tier has usually it falls on the 3 categories roughly. Okay, you're going to have you could say services that are always free, right? So they never expire and they're available to everyone. So you have a monthly allowance for those kind of services. Then you have other services which are very similar, right? Which is 12 months for free, which is almost like the always, but just for the first year, the same concept. There's also a monthly allowance. And usually those 2 categories, they tend to encompass the most basic services, the ones that that you're going to use, the most popular ones for sure. And then you have the third one, which is the free trials, which it really depends. It's more for the niche services, and each service will really depend what sort of monthly allowance you get. Maybe it's 2 months, maybe it's 1 month, maybe it's a number of gigabytes. It really depends, but that's just roughly how you can put this into 3 categories. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that's a good explanation. We've had a question that I'll throw up on the chat. So, is the Amazon equivalent of Google Cloud Shell free? Which I think is it called Cloud Shell? Is that what our one's called? I don't know. So maybe we should.
And I just put a link in there. So yeah, there's no additional charge for using the AWS Cloud Shell, right? And the only additional cost in there would be data transfer, kind of in or out. But put a link in there if you want to dive in a little bit deeper on how to use the Cloud Shell within the console.
Excellent, thank you. Awesome, cool. So yeah, so you can have a look. I think if there's anything you wanted to highlight on this, Carlos, on the page.
Yes, for sure. So if you want, you can start. For example, you can see the menu on the left hand side. If you just click on the 12 months for free, so we can focus on that. Yeah.
Yep.
And then let's go with the first one, Amazon EC2. Very simple. No, if you go and you just hover over it, you're gonna see that you will get 750 hours per month for a T2 micro or T3 micro instance of types of Linux, Red Hat, SLS, or even Windows, right? And 750 hours means 24/7 for the month, right? So there's no real concern there. It's very easy to understand.
Right. So is that you say easy to understand? Just checking for me. Is that 750? Oh, per month. I see it now. It says per month. Correct. So yeah. So you get this. So you could spin up this instance and have it running for a full year and pay nothing.
Absolutely. That's it. Very simple.
I just feel like that's nice of us. But yeah, this is definitely something. And so maybe, I mean, continue. Sorry, we'll jump into some maybe like reasons why you would do this in a minute. But yeah, was there anything else you wanted to highlight on this?
From this one, actually, well, if you want, for example, we can go to you can tick the always free box, right, on the left. And you will tend to see here, for example, serverless options, right?
Yeah.
You can see, for example, the first one that shows you, right, Amazon DynamoDB. You can get 25 gigs at a month of storage. And then you have 25 provision WCUs, which is the write capacity units, and also 25 for read capacity units, right? Which roughly can get you up to 200 million requests per month. Okay.
Wow.
For free, all the time. So this is always for free one. And of course, the classic, the very popular Lambda is also included here. You can have 1 million of free requests per month. And also you have up to 3.2 million seconds of compute time per month.
Okay. I feel like the Lambda one is the one I always think of. I don't know about you guys when I think of free tier, because you always hear of, I mean, we had a customer the other day who they basically had a bit of a chargeback issue. And that month, most months, they hadn't been paying for Lambda. And so when they like 1 month they had, 1 month they hadn't, it was a whole thing. But we were kind of looking at it and we were like, oh, wait, well, they're using it, but it's not. And then we were like, oh, yeah, free tier. Free tier is like a big thing that Common Hammons, and it allows you again to play with it, because 1 million requests it's a lot. I mean, if you're running up all of your infrastructure on serverless, maybe it's not that much. But for things like the ODC lab, for the labs that we build and kind of well-architected labs that are running kind of monthly, weekly, it's quite easy to do that, to not even have to pay for Lambda.
Yeah, cool. a lot of cool projects that you can build with that too, even like kind of connecting those pieces back together so that really the majority of the components would have no cost to them to get kind of something off the ground there. It's very cool.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Anything else you wanted to highlight in here?
And I guess maybe we can just look at the last category, which is the trials, yeah. And you will see just usually the more funkier services, the more niche services. You can see here clearly Amazon SageMaker. You can have for 2 months, right? It works, and you can get a number of offerings within the SageMaker, including 250 hours per month of a specific type of Studio Notebook, or 250 hours of a specific type of on-demand notebook instances. Plus, you have SageMaker Data Wrangler. You have also write units, 50 hours per month of instances on training and on inference. So all of that is included for 2 months for free if you at the moment that you want to start using SageMaker, for example.
Awesome. Okay, cool. All right. I think
there's one more in there too. I don't know if you could scroll down on that one. I think the QuickSight dashboards also, right? So we get a 30-day trial for QuickSight dashboards.
Oh, that's yeah.
Very cool for folks that are, playing around with the cost intelligence dashboards, the KPI trackers, any of those well-architected labs. Kind of a neat way to pilot that and get that off the ground.
Excellent. I love. We've already mentioned it, and it's. I feel like it's a running joke. It's like how long into an episode did we mention the dashboards? So Aaron, It's 14 minutes. I told Aaron, who's the go-to-market for it, and he was like, "Are you serious?" And I was like, "Yeah, we mentioned it almost." I think if you did like a search through all of the dialogue that comes out of these episodes, you would find it in almost every episode because it's amazing. Okay, cool. All right, let me take this down. So thanks for sharing. That was, I think, so first kind of call to action is, and I'll throw the link up again, is if you are kind of starting out in the cloud, you want to try new services, check out if anything is free that you can take advantage of, because there's going to be some, like when we looked at the EC2 one, there are specific types that are free, and often I think it says it on the console, so just go and check those out maybe when you're kind of prepping for some infrastructure. And John, you had a kind of fun project that you wanted to mention that people could try if they wanted to get used to services and take advantage of the free ones. Do you want to?
So yeah, I think maybe like couple different ways that folks may end up using the free tier, right? Like I know the first time I used it was that 12-month kind of window of time, like prepping for like a certification. You can go in and you can play around with all the different services. You can spin stuff up, tear it back down, get comfortable with like a really wide range of services in any kind of certification prep. But I think one of the other cool ones is going through and building like a static website. So kind of a classic project where you can go through and build that. And I think really the only cost you might see about 50 cents for the hosted zone. So for domains, stuff like that you might have related. But you could host the static web page on S3. You can enable that and get a website going.
Nice.
For almost nothing. But the last one that we were talking about too was a project that, Steph and I have been kind of working on lately, which was building a Twitter bot, right? So you can build this on Lambda, you can use EC2 for it, a lot of different options, but falls within that realm of like, I think we had 1 million invocations or 1 million requests you could do with Lambda that fall within the free tiers. So you could build this using this Python library that was just linked up here, this Tweepy library, which is the one that we used and found it really cool. So another neat project if you want to get your hands dirty with the free tier.
Yeah, definitely. And this is the bot. John made it, AWS Cost News Bot. John, do you want to explain what it does for people? So go and follow this bot, please.
Sure. Yeah. So this was the eat your own dog food or drink your own champagne for building a project that would kind of work in our world of looking at all these new announcements that are coming out from AWS and just kind of parsing out the ones that are related to cost. So that covers a pretty wide range of services, things like pricing reductions, the new Lambda tiered pricing, improvements to auto scaling, and kind of grouping all that stuff in a place that folks can reference it. So just a fun project that we got to toy around with, but yeah, feel free to check that out if you're interested in staying on top of the news.
Yeah, definitely. And a nice little segue to us, and we'll get back to the topic, is don't forget to follow me at Live Like a Nerd for kind of content about the show, content about talks that we're doing. And any questions or comments you have about the show in general, email us at costoptimization@amazon.com. We love to have your feedback. We've had people suggest ideas recently, and we're taking those on. So please do that. And if you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. Okay, back to the actual topic because we went on.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, so basically, if you are, I think 2 really good use cases you've mentioned is if you are looking to develop your skills in Amazon and maybe don't work at a company who just pay for your accounts, maybe you want to set up your own personal account and learn stuff, check out the free tiers before you do it. Or if you, like John said, is doing stuff for an exam, that's a great reason. If you want to have a mess around with some of the stuff, you can take advantage. And we've got a question before we dive into the kind of considerations of the aftermath of free stuff. Let's see what we've got here. So what are the skills required in AWS as a fresher? Oh, wow, that's a good topic idea. Vampire 341. I like that as a concept. We should do an episode on that. But yeah, really quick, maybe 2 from John, 2 from Carlos. What would be some skills required when you're starting out in the cloud? John, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I mean, I know we're going to talk about this a little bit more, but I think the budgets is a big piece, right? We're talking about cost and we're talking about usage. Being able just to set the budgets up and make sure that you don't get any surprises, before you start doing things. That's definitely a really important skill. And then I think just having visibility and kind of tracking stuff. So build a resource and then figure out what you have in the environment so that, we're talking about free tier, don't want to have too much sprawl or, build things, kind of forget about them. So having just like that ability to get back in the console and figure out, what is it that you actually have that you've deployed.
Carlos?
Well, I think, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but obviously very important to know that AWS Free Tier is out there to help you. Very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
But also, number two is this is a great way to actually, especially for those folks that I know there are a lot of them trying to do certifications, trying to understand and try to become, like more attractive in the market if you want to work in cloud. There's no better way to actually do it than to just leverage the AWS Free Tier offerings with the 12-month and the always free, which gives you all the basic tools that usually all the sort of services that are usually how do you say considered for these certifications, and you can actually test and understand the concepts better once you do that. That's just it's a gift for us to you.
Yeah. Cool. All right, I'll go a little broader outside of maybe the scope of today, but I'll go two things as well. So one, have a play around in the console. That's my probably like to kind of understand what the pictures of things are, what the descriptions look like. When I learned, I played around with the console. But the skills I would recommend looking into is trying to learn how to use infrastructure as code. So there's a couple of different options that you can do with that. There is things like Terraform, there's CloudFormation, which is the Amazon one. But have a little look at seeing how you can develop what you made by hand, then go delete it and then recreate it using an infrastructure as code. That in itself is like a skill because you might have to, if you're not used to things like development and coding, it's a little bit codey. It kind of gives you education on that. That'll probably be the first one. And then spend time understanding how things fit together in terms of networking and security. Security and networking are not my forte. This is a cost optimization show. But I think investing some time in understanding how the pieces fit together to allow kind of how data flows and how different services connect, and they draw diagrams and kind of mess around with that. That will help you understand when it comes to things like if you want to work in security, if you want to work in cost, understanding how the components fit together is kind of a good skill to have. Okay, cool. All right, so let's go back into focusing on free. So Carlos, we've told everyone, like, go check out the free tier. They're going to all start building in their accounts, but we want to make sure that they either stay in the free tier or they don't get any kind of bill shock. So what would you suggest that they do?
Right. So so it is out there. Enjoy it. It's great. But at the same time, typical question: how do I stay within the AWS free tier? I hear this is very, very common, right? Because one thing to understand is that the free tier does not necessarily mean that you will not incur charges in a given month, right? That's super important to understand. So once your workloads go beyond the free tier allowance that is for this respective service, then you may start to incurring charges basis on, you can say, the classic service pricing model, right? Mm-hmm. So obviously tracking your usage is an integral part of using the free tier. And there are roughly 3 ways to do it, okay? So number one, you have on your billing dashboard on your AWS console, you have a section called the free tier section. Very simple. You can manually go there. You can see how much usage you have at any given moment from that sort of free tier allowance, and you can also see a forecast of how much it is forecasted for you of usage based on how much you've used it in the month, right? So to give you a sense of whether you should be careful or not for a specific service, right? That's number one. Very easy to do. Then you can also activate something called to receive free tier usage alerts, which is also on the billing preferences section of the billing dashboard. And these alerts are pretty much going to let you know when your usage exceeds 85% of the free tier allowance, right? So it's just an automatic read for all the services included in the free tier. Well, not all. Let me correct myself. It's only for those that are always free, or for the 12-month package as well, right?
Right. Okay.
Those will be included there. And finally, if you want something a bit more sophisticated, and also if you want to track those the sort of services that are not included into this usage alerts, then you can use AWS budgets, right? Which is what we typically use for anything else. And here you can just very simple program whatever you need, whatever thresholds you want. You can decide exactly what service you want, and you will get your alerts or your SNS message, whatever you need to have, right?
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah.
I was going to say, Carlos, you mentioned something really, really important at the end there was email or SNS. So a couple different options to get those alerts. And we've seen folks that now they're using Slack, where you can email into a Slack channel. So you can actually set that as the target for any of your budget alerts. And again, the most important part here is when you're creating these budgets or you're using the default ones that are set up in the console, and just make sure the recipient is set to a target that you're actually tracking and you can see that. You don't want to have those notifications get buried someplace, or if you do want to use SNS, you can trigger those to go to a Slack webhook too and page a team and let them know, hey, you're starting to approach this limit. That's the other last kind of piece there I was going to kind of call out was with budgets, you can set this up based on forecasted usage. So you can either have a notification based on hitting that 85% threshold. I saw a comment about that in the chat, but you could do it also based on forecasted usage. So if you've got that 750 hour allowance for the month for that one T2 micro instance, you might want to get a notification if someone's deployed 2 or 3 of those instances, and you're going to hit that limit earlier in the month than originally expected. So a lot of different ways, and definitely play around with that, get comfortable and make sure your alerts are working correctly as expected.
Yeah, definitely. It's worth spending that. I remember watching, it must have been something from another cloud provider, did a conference, and they had people on a panel and they were talking about like big mistakes and stuff like that or something. And someone said someone had spun up like 10 massive servers and they'd spent like $10,000 overnight. And the next day was in the office, like, how do I do a budget? Like, how do I do this stuff? Because I was terrified that my old company, not that I would do it necessarily, but like someone would do it, and that it would be like my fault that I didn't notice it was happening, because we had so much spend. And if you only look at it like once a month at the end of the month when you're doing kind of chargeback, you won't notice that kind of thing. And so there's also things like when you think of lambda looping and people putting like list bucket that like API calls, and there's all these things that can happen. That's why it's really keen to either keep an eye on your cost using something like a dashboard or Cost Explorer regularly, or have these alerts so you don't have to every day log into them. So please, people watching, go and set a budget on your account.
And I think the other part too is using tools like Cost Explorer. You can look at the whole landscape, like what am I being billed for, on a monthly basis to track that. If you're doing the certification stuff and you start deploying, CloudFormation templates, you might end up provisioning resources that you didn't think about, in advance. So it's really helpful just to be able to have that like line of sight. What do I have? Play around with Cost Explorer and kind of see all those details.
Awesome. Okay, right. So we've got like 2 minutes left. Carlos, is there anything else you wanted to shout out in terms of considerations you want people to take away from today?
Yes, one very important is once you feel comfortable that now I know that I'm gonna stay within my AWS free tier, then you got the next questions, like the greedy questions. How do I get more out of the AWS free tier, right? And there are a number of ways to do that. I think number one, you can use, for example, architectures that leverage the always free type, right? Which is more serverless, more DynamoDB databases kind of thing. Like what John was saying before, like those static websites, classic example. I am a triathlete and I work in AWS, so I had to do something about it. So I posted a race report and I put it on a static website and I tested the whole thing, and I was so proud of having done it. Everything within the free tier. And like John said, all I had to pay was for the Route 53 hosted. So that was it. Very simple.
Oh,
that is cool. That is a really cool example.
Yeah.
That's
and
it.
The other one is very cheeky, is remember that these allowances are bound to an account. So if you really need it or you're in desperate need, open a second account. You can open a third account and you can have that and play a little bit with it. Just as a wink, sort of last. Yeah.
I love it. AWS giving you the ways to hack about to save money. Well, that's what we do. That's our jobs. That's what we love it. Awesome. Okay, cool. I think that's it. So someone's got meeting. Okay, so generally, if anyone's done this and wants to share their story, we'd love to hear from you. So cost optimization at Amazon.com. Would love to hear if you've also done this or been inspired to go and learn and mess about with something and keep it free. I'm definitely have a budget on my personal account to make sure that I don't overspend. Okay, cool. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Next week, we have Matty back on, who's also in the Optics team, talking about how to create your first Kerr query. So we did a whole session on creating the Kerr, but he's going to talk through kind of the logistics around actually writing a Kerr query up next week. Okay, cool. We've been the Keys AWS Optimization. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks.